I was in Mandalay in Myanmar at the time of the earthquake. My friend and I are traveling and went to see the local landmarks. We went to the royal palace, and already at the exit we went to see the palace wall. We had a look at it, went down, went beyond literally 10 to 15 meters, and the shaking began. A very strong shaking started. Ground was slipping underfoot, as I had already experienced the earthquake in Almaty a year and a half ago. I realized that it was an earthquake. I started looking around. I saw that the local people around just sat down on the ground. I started looking for some buildings nearby, high-rise buildings, because this is the first thing that can threaten life. But, fortunately, we were in an open space. In fact, we were not in any danger from the collapse of the buildings. The shaking lasted about a minute. When it ended, the walls of the palace and some other buildings were collapsing, and the cladding began to burst. We started looking around. There was dust all around, and we decided to walk around to capture it all a little bit. I tried to shoot on camera. We also walked literally 30 to 40 meters. Maybe 15 minutes have passed, probably 20 at most. And there was a second shake. The shaking was a little shorter. But even at first I didn't feel the shaking. I heard the house, the building of the National Theatre across the river, begin to collapse. We saw that a large number of high-rise buildings had collapsed. The first one we saw was a 7-story condo, a condominium. It just collapsed literally to the ground floor. People's voices were heard under the rubble. People were talking to them, but they probably weren't rescuers then. I don't remember anymore. It's just that, people, there are, probably some passers-by who are not indifferent. Our hostel, where we lived, was also damaged. It didn't collapse, but it tilted heavily. We weren't allowed to take our things from there. We had documents, equipment, and all the money for the entire trip. We were very, very worried about this. But fortunately, we managed to collect all our money at our own risk. We went and got our things, and in general we can continue our trip. Because we didn't have any money at all, we couldn't imagine how we would continue to exist. At the moment of the earthquake, of course, there was unreal fear, because I say it is like with a parachute. The first time you jump, you're not so scared, but the second time you're much more scared. And it's the same with earthquakes. This is my second earthquake, even my third earthquake, and you can't influence it in any way. It's probably like something when you're on a plane, you hear some kind of problems, you're afraid of some kind of inevitability. The first night we were moved into a house, such a frame one, I think, even if it was collapsed, it would be okay. The third night, last night, we actually slept outside, just like all the residents of Mandalay. People weren't allowed in hotels, of course, because everyone was afraid of new shakings, and the whole city was just sleeping on the street. There is absolutely no electricity, practically no communication. And in such conditions we spent the night. I was struck by the fact that this is a poor country, despite the fact that they have a civil war, unreal poverty, and they want to help you more. They are constantly. I say, we were sitting, a car stopped, a local woman got out and offered us food. I say, no, thanks. There are probably people who need it more, and we were constantly helped everywhere, tried to help, invited. The people here are very kind. And at every step I want to cry from what is happening here. Here's a dog, some puppy with a broken leg, just trying to follow you, and you can't even do anything with it. I just want to wish that everything, of quake, would be over as soon as possible. This is a disaster, and probably more countries could help financially, at least in order to eliminate the consequences of this disaster.